Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is a channel that's all about spiritual growth and transcending the boundaries of what you've known before. It's practical, it's down to earth, it's real, it's transparent. Try to share from my own experiences what I've learned and how I've grown over the last 30 odd years of being a believer. And I want to take you on in your journey further than you perhaps thought was even possible into God. So today I want to talk about spiritual agreements. You may not even be familiar with this term. I picked it up some years ago from John Eldridge, who was quite a well-known Christian speaker, particularly in men's ministry, and was well known for the book Wild at Heart. And he talked about this in a different book, whose title just eludes me at the moment, but Waking the Dead, that's right, was the title of the book. Spiritual agreements. The agreements that we make in our soul on a very deep soul level that actually bind us and hold us in a sort of a way that hinder us growing, right? You might have heard about limiting beliefs and there's different ways of stating what these are, but basically, in short, how it works is, as at a very young age generally, and certainly as we grow in different ways, we can pick these beliefs up, these spiritual agreements up. But particularly from a very young age, we might hear an authority figure or a loved figure that's above us, a father, a mother, a brother, someone external to us, begin to speak into our lives. They might speak negatively. And it might be something along the lines of, you're useless, you're hopeless, you're worthless, you don't have what it takes, you're not good enough, And this constantly gets into our mind, right? And it sort of starts at this very external level. And it holds there, because what happens is, as it enters from the external, we take it up as our own, okay? So we actually enter into a spiritual agreement with this particular statement about ourselves. So let's assume it comes as, you're hopeless and you can't do anything. All right? I'm sure you've heard this from different ways. Eventually, we take that in and we begin to process it, and we sort of say to ourselves, you're so hopeless, you can't do anything, come on, you're useless. And we add even more and more to it. Have you noticed how this works? You begin with this small state, you're hopeless, then you're useless, you're worthless, you can't do anything, and it spirals down into this very deep chasm that's very hard to break out of. These spiritual agreements come up all the time. So let's assume that you're wanting to do something in your life. And I work a lot with people in businesses and stuff like that who've wanted to start off and do something in business, and they've had this dream and this passion, and I've had these dreams myself, and I've found that these beliefs, these agreements that I've bought into, if you like, have really stopped me fulfilling my purpose and my mission until I begin to break them off one at a time. It's taken me a long time to do that. I didn't even know I wasn't aware they were there when I was younger, and you might be in that same situation yourself. Let's say you're going to be this business person, you want to go out and you've got this great idea, but then when the rubber hits the road and you've got to go out and start talking to people about that idea, promoting your idea, maybe asking people to invest in your idea, all of a sudden these barriers come up, and they're so powerful, right? They're going, no one's going to want what I've got. I've got nothing to offer. I'm absolutely hopeless. I'm worthless. What am I thinking? Whatever possessed me to think that I had something that people would desire? Now, as Christians, we see this a lot in ministry as well. We see these people who are up the front, and we see them, preaching and teaching and worship leading and doing, mission work. And we sort of like, hey, I can't do that. I don't know how they can do it. I could never. I got nothing to offer. And I hear people say that. Been a Christian many, many years. I've got nothing to offer. That's part of this. We bought into this lie, right? We bought into these spiritual agreements, and we've sealed them almost like writing a contract. Now, assuming that you maybe have written a contract at some point, signed this contract with someone around some area, whether it's even just joining a bank or I agree to this, terms and conditions and so forth. Well, it's very much like that, in that we've now taken this external voice, internalized it ourselves. It's just like we've signed this agreement with our enemy saying, yes, I agree that I'm worthless and hopeless. Totally contrary to our true identity in God, by the way, but this is how these spiritual agreements work. And we don't know they're there, and they're laying dormant until we step out and try and do something that's got some reality around it, like starting a business, for example. So when I've had so many business ideas over the years, and I had this amazing business some years ago where I was installing air conditioning. I was making, well over $100 an hour back in the day when, I think it was probably $15 an hour was the average wage. And, but I didn't have, it was seasonal work, and I didn't have that much work over the whole year. I had a really bulk of work over probably 8 weeks or 10 weeks of the year, which when people were desperate for air conditioners. And I had all these, go in and see these people, talk to, the big distributors, Harvey Norman, and some of these electrical places that were selling hundreds and hundreds and thousands of air cons each year. Why not go in and talk to them and just advertise what you do, tell them about what you do? But each time I'd go in there, this fear would arise up, and I would say to myself, what have you got to offer, Tony? What have you got that they could look at them? They're Harvey Norman. They're a multi-million-dollar empire. How could you possibly go in there and offer your services to them? And so I'd walk almost to the door sometimes and turn around. And one day I went in there and just dropped, would you take a few cards? You know what I mean? Like without selling myself at all. And yeah, I got a few jobs out of them, but I didn't get much because I didn't believe in myself. How could anyone else believe in Tony's air conditioning installations if Tony didn't believe in it? In this case, I was fortunate in that there was such a desperate need for air conditioners to be installed in the heat of the summer in Cairns, tropical North Queensland, that there was enough people that I think I advertised in the paper, and I had a van that had writing all over it. So I was quite successful. I was able to sell the business, not for a huge amount, after I think 3 or 4 seasons, and we moved on from there. But it was a real lesson for me that what I believe about myself, others will believe about me also. Do I believe I have something to offer? If I don't, if I allow these spiritual agreements to become my identity, which they often do, I'm walking around almost bowing, and I'm like, this kind of false humility that says I've got nothing to offer. I've got nothing that you would really need. And no wonder our business ideas fall flat on the ground. Most business is about connecting to other people, selling the idea to other people who can use. You might have the best idea in the world, but if you can't promote it, no one even knows you exist. People will come to me when I was doing business coaching a few years back in particular and go, man, no one's coming to my business. I've got to look at the shop. It's fantastic. I've got this going on, and I've got this fantastic idea for, selling online, and I've done this and that. And you're like, but who knows about you? Does anyone know that you exist? Well, no, they don't. How have you promoted yourself? Well, I'm not sure. And I remember one guy in particular, I said to him, well, what about if you just went around and you started to talk to all the fabricators in your area? He had a welding sort of business. And I was saying to him, well, what about if you just went around and started to knock on some doors and to, front up, give some examples, maybe some pictures of work you've done, some examples of what you can do, because he was a fantastic fabricator, this guy. Fantastic at his job, fantastic. But his self-belief, his limiting beliefs, his agreements that he'd enter into was that I've got nothing to offer. And so when we came back again, some months later, began to talk about, hey, how's it going? Still we're not making hardly any work, hardly anyone knows where I am, and all this sort of stuff. I said, so did you go out and talk to people? Did you go and knock on the other factories and, tell them you can do subby work, whatever? No, I never got to that part, Yeah, I put this little bit out on Facebook and I did that or whatever, but can you see how these beliefs really inform our practice? What we believe about ourselves impacts on the way the world sees us, and ultimately stops us, holds us back from becoming all that we can be in Christ. We need to overcome these spiritual agreements. We need to break them. We need to seriously work on them and begin to notice them. Firstly, what is it that I'm saying to myself when I start to move forward in ministry, in relationship with others? This is a classic, another one. You might be single. I had this when I was younger. I just was so insecure. I just thought I had nothing to offer in a relationship, nothing whatsoever. And I remember standing outside a place where I'd met this girl on the weekend, and we got quite close, just in over a couple of hours. And I remember going, she seemed pretty keen. And I remember going to her shop where she worked, and I was like, right, I'm going to go in there and ask her on a date. Simple thing. I think I was 19 years old or 20 or something. Do you think I'd be confident enough to do that? No, I stood outside that shop And I looked in, and I could see her in there, lovely smiling face, and I thought, I should go in there. But then everything in me said, what are you talking about, idiot? You got nothing. Don't go in there. She's gonna reject you openly before others. You're gonna be ridiculed, humiliated. Don't go in there. And I'm standing there in this kind of tension, and I'm torn between the two, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Anyway, I stood there for about 20 minutes, I reckon. I still, remember this quite clearly. When I walked off, it was like this. I was downcast. I was humiliated. I agreed. I bought into that spiritual agreement that I had nothing to offer, and I was like worthless. And I walked away. I never saw that girl again. I never went on any date with her, and I carried that, what's the word? Insecurity, fear about myself, lack of self-worth for another couple of years before I started to see, actually, I'm quite attractive to women. Women really enjoy me. I've got a lot to say, And it wasn't that long after that I met my wife, and I've been married like 31 years now. But, it's like, what was going on there, man? I'd bought so deeply into those beliefs that I'd picked up as a child that I just thought I had absolutely nothing to offer. And you may be the same. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about very practical steps on how you can break some of these agreements and really begin to make a difference in getting out there and becoming everything that you can be in Christ. Thanks for listening.